Testing. Test.
Before,
Okay.
but I'm listening to it right now, so if it doesn't.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the general meeting, guys. Welcome back to the spring semester. Welcome to RITSEC. I'm Leah. I'm actually the ISTSCA, but fun fact, I was the head of education last year, so I'm here performing my old job for today. Let's get started. Join the Discord. I hope you're in the Discord because you showed up here. But if you're not in the Discord, you can share this with your friends. You can tell them to join so they can pull up, have some fun with us of truth most of the time for all of our IGs and other events. If you're curious about like, oh, I want to come to, I don't know, Red Team Recruiting. What day is it? What time is it? Check on the calendar and find out. And then you can show up to all the stuff in the club that way. And yeah, there's not much more to that. There it is. And then join our mailing list. This is where you'll get all the weekly like presenters for education and research and any other club announcements. If you maybe don't check Discord as often and maybe email is better for you, you can sign up for the mailing list. It's super convenient. I check it all the time if I'm curious who's presenting for research and such. And then again, like all the announcements that we post in Discord, they usually always go in the mailing list as well. For this week, spring 2026 mentor signups are open. Mentee signups will come later, but if you're an upperclassman and you want to share all of your knowledge and wisdom with other people in the club, you can sign up to be a mentor. As you can tell, on January 20th, the channels will be set up, and then you can start communicating with your group of mentees. Then you're going to start meeting with them, and of course, what comes with mentorship is exclusive mentorship social events that you can attend. So, yeah, you can sign up to have one-on-one mentees, or you can get a group, whatever you want. All the stuff is in the form. Yeah, I know you guys want to sign up. You can sign up later. It's also in the announcements. And you can ask Adam more questions about mentorship if you want. And lastly, if you want to be up here and you want to present some research, some cool stuff that you've been working on in the club, or I guess personal projects, literally anything at all, sign up to present research. And yeah, it looks good on your resume. You can have like a video of you up here talking to a whole audience about something cool. Looks really smart. And you can help other people learn and make this club super cool. All right, guys. The moment you've all been waiting for. We have Lucas Peters presenting Intro to Ops. Please welcome Lucas.
Thank you. Yeah, well, intro to ops, I'm gonna like cover a lot of things. It's not just one singular thing. It has multiple meanings, so I'm gonna just go like a whole wide spectrum in this talk. I do hope you get something out of it, and maybe like inspire, get into it. I think it's a cool thing. So, first of all, who am I? I think a lot of you guys recognize me, probably because like people post my face on the Discord server. But if you don't know me, I'm a fourth year CSEC major. I'm also deaf with cochlear implants. I can hear you just fine, sometimes. I'm also on ops, and you usually see me doing these kind of presentations for ops. I'm also on infra for competitions because I love doing infra. And I also do red teaming for competitions because I like to be a little bit malicious. And people also call me a clubroom defender, that kind of clubroom guy. I'm always hanging out in the clubroom. You can see me in there most of the day. And yeah, again, you see these 3 emojis in the Discord server. That's me. Now you can see my face up here. Now, moving on. What is ops? Good question. Does it mean oversized pancake syndrome? Does it mean opossums preaching socialism? Only pizza Sunday? That's only pizza Friday, because we got Friday pizza after demo. So it could be overtly polite sharks, 1 pepperoni slice, pizza stuff. No, it doesn't mean any of these. It could be, but it's not. It's not an acronym. It's more like operations. Operations here at RITSEC, we do have a program for operations which is led by our lead, John Arundale. Um, he's been doing it for like 2 years at this point. God bless his soul. It's a hard job. Um, but what is operations and what's operations program all about in RITSEC? Well, we support RITSEC in fulfilling the requirements for club operations. And we also support RITSEC members by providing technical resources for projects, competitions, etc. One of the constitutional requirements or like wording that we have in the Constitution of RITSEC is we maintain the RITSEC physical and cloud infrastructure with high availability and security standards. So we gotta like provide all of these resources to you guys while keeping up the security standards, because we're a security club. I think it would be embarrassing if we were hacked. We do have a lot of projects going on in the background to like provide more resources to you guys, and so that you guys can use these resources. And one of the cool things about our club is that we do have a server room. We have rack space, hardware, and cables that support all of these things that the club members use. It's pretty big. I do have pictures in later slides, so I'll show you. And we're basically like a mini sysadmin team. We are just constantly on these servers, upkeeping it, managing it, making sure it's alive, serving for you guys. And this team is comprised of all people of interest for DevSecOps, operating systems, networking, system administration, cloud computing, and software development, where security is considered. Because, security club, let's have some security involved. Yeah, we just like onboarded like some new people, and we're hyped to get going. Yeah, but let's go in more details of ops at RITSEC. We, like I said, our ops lead is John. He's been leader of it for like 2 years, and then we do have a junior ops lead, the one that will be taking over ops lead soon, is Stella, and the ops team has like a little bit focuses. We do like all of the things, but there's like certain focuses that we do have, like automation, cloud, physical infrastructure, hypervisor, and services. And we'll go in more details here. Automation. What's the goal? We want to do less manual work. We don't want to, every time like we have to bring up a server, and then we have to bring up a service on the server, that's going to take a ton of work. So we want to just automate that entire process with code. So we have Terraform, where we use like infrastructure as code. We just like tell the cloud providers, hey, make this instance using this code. Well, this code is telling the OpenStack to make this instance. And we have like templates of these to make future cloud deployments so much easier, because we do a ton of these things a lot, like constantly. So we don't want to just, we just want to make it easier for ourselves. And we also have Ansible stuff, which we use to provision infrastructure, install services, and configure them. If we have like 5 servers with one same service, we don't want to just go into each different server to configure that service for one configuration change. We can just run Ansible to run this and then change it for all of them in just like 10 seconds flat. It's really awesome. Moving on, we have cloud. Not like the OpenStack that we use or upkeep for you guys. We use like Lino and Cloudflare. This stuff is like used for stuff we don't or can't realistically host ourselves. It also, it's not just that, it also includes like services that are critical to the operations. For example, your single sign-on, like authentic, we want to keep that service online as long as we can. And then there's also GitLab. We want to make sure the code that you push to our GitLab um, stays online as much as it can. So we don't want to take these down. So we host these on the cloud to make it more convenient and easy and more reliable for you guys. And then of course we can't really host the whole wide world DNS, so we have to use Cloudflare to tell like to point IP addresses to our domains to IP addresses. Sorry. Yeah. So it's these services that we use. Yeah. And then physical infrastructure. So this is the pictures I was talking about. These are the updated pictures of our server room. The one on the left is the servers used for OpenStack, like compute, and then this stuff on the right is the storage. That's a lot of storage. Yeah. Well, so what about physical infrastructure? We want to manage hardware. We want to configure switches, routers, servers, storage, anything else physical. We go into the server room, maintain it. We can add new drives, new RAM. We can upgrade components, etc. And then networking, we do some dirty physical cabling. We add new switches and routers. Yeah, physical cabling can be a mess. Sometimes we don't want to. It's a mess behind, but we're trying to get things sorted out. But basically, when you get into the server room, you get your hands dirty. You flex some muscles and learn how to use serial cables. Like, thank you, Jake, for carrying servers when we were upgrading some components of it. He's got the muscles. You can see him. Yeah, like the servers are really heavy. They're like 50 pounds probably. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, you can just carry them, and then it was easy for him. Now we have hypervisor, the one that you use, OpenSec. You can see me. I'm always fighting OpenStack. Sometimes you can see me and John and Stella fighting OpenStack to make sure it works. Most of the time. Yeah, it's also made a good video on how to use OpenStack, so you can use it for your projects, your research, your things to host on OpenStack. So be sure to check out their videos. Now, how do we deploy OpenStack? We used Cola Ansible. It's a Ansible solution of deploying like OpenStack containers. It makes the deployment so much easier. Yeah, I'll probably go a little bit more details on that. What is OpenStack, you may ask? It's a set of APIs that work with the base operating system, like the host operating system, to provide cloud virtualization services. Now, like you have a project on OpenStack, it provides like a specific parts. It gives you a quota of like RAM, CPU cores and stuff like that. That's all part of the Nova service. Now for like auth and stuff like that, that's like Keystone. For images like Ubuntu 2204 or Rocket 9, that's all Glance, yeah. And then for storage, that's all Cinder. They all have these names, and they're all are like services that provide to become like one single large thing, which is called OpenStack. We're not the only ones using this. Big companies use OpenStack, like NASA, Walmart, Verizon. Let's excuse their outage earlier this week. Geico, United Nations, CERN, etc. There's a huge page. You can look up like companies using OpenStack. So once you get into like dirty details of OpenStack, you can become like a OpenStack administrator, system administrator for these companies. So it's pretty cool. Now, services. What are services? Well, in terms of RITSEC operations, we build these services, we test these services, and then we can deploy open source applications to support RITSEC for you guys to use. And as well as just maintaining, because you gotta maintain those applications. Some of the core services that we have here are Docker, Help Desk, and Netbox. Some of those are just like for ourselves as operations to like help us. But if you have issues, like with OpenStack, you can use a help desk. The projects that we have here, you may know about the Discord bot that we have on our RITSEC Discord server, OpsBot 3 or OB. We host that. We use that as a service. You can use that to make your own OpenStack account. We use it for sign-ins earlier. Yeah, and then we also have Console. This was made by like an alumni of RITSEC, and then we kind of do maintain it sometimes, but we use it for competitions. It's like a console sharing thing to see the virtual machines that used for competitions. It's easy to set up. It's easy to manage. Yeah. Netbox, Flashback, all used for operations and competitions. It's just like mini projects, really. So, if all of these stuff made you interested to get started in operations, well, how can you get started? Well, we do have operations interest group here. I'm the co-lead of it with John Arundale. We do meet every day, not every day, sorry, every week. Our meetings are Monday, 6:30, I think. I can't remember. I'll double check. Yeah. Okay. Lucas says yes. Thank you. We do cover like everything from Docker to OpenStack to Cisco switches and making Ethernet cables. And it's like hands-on learning. We do provide demos, much more like personalized demos that you guys can try out. And it's like a perfect start for learning to try home labbing, which we'll get more details on. And it's like a test environment if you want to join ops team here, because there's a huge overlap. A lot of people that are on ops team got started through ops IG. Well, if you don't have time for ops IG, you can do home labbing. There's a pipeline that we usually like joke about here in ops. There's a home lab to ops pipeline. But first, what's a home lab? It's a home lab, a computing environment that you can set up in your home or something like that. That can be used for learning, experimenting, or practicing anything, like with hardware or software configurations. You can set up a Proxmox, you can set up Proxmox cluster, Kubernetes. You can even set up your own OpenStack. I know someone's trying to do that. I know 90% of like past ops members, excuse me, past of ops members have done some form of home labbing. Yes, this is how I learned ways of sysadmin. And this is how you should learn the ways of sysadmin, because you have your own, you can mess up, you can set it up again, and it's just simple. But if you don't have a home lab, which I understand because RAM and storage prices are getting more expensive, well, you can still look for cheap old enterprise hardware, old laptops, and then there's all bunch of like open source applications out there you can use to host in your own home lab and provide like a service for your family. Which brings me to here. Why home lab? it's a good practice to have and like a way to build your resume, because I know people have been hired because they talked about their home lab in their interviews because they listed their own home lab on their resume. Um, you can self-host anything. You can host your own personal blog. You can host your own like a calendar, like a to-do list, um, or like photos. Yeah, and in that way you can not depend on like Google Cloud or Apple. And it's also like a great test environment. Again, I said if you mess up, you can try again to set it up, and it's not in prod, hopefully. So nothing critical is going to go down because of it. And then if you want to like learn something new like Kubernetes, go for it. You have an infrastructure. And if you live in a dorm or something, you can have the home lab in your dorm because ORT doesn't really charge you for electricity or internet usage. So you have a good internet speed, and then you can just have like so much computers in your dorm. Yes, but don't get in trouble with it, please. I'm not responsible for that. And then if you go to Ops IT, we can like teach you how to set up stuff like this because we do go over it. That's cool and all, but how can I make my life easier if I'm doing operations? Well, there's a saying called CI/CD. It's like automated continuous integration and continuous development. We use this. It reduces time to take from like a code pushing to code deployed because use the workflow. So GitHub Actions, GitLab Runner do all of these things. There's also check-ins, which is like old, but still works. Example workflow that you had in the past that would like take up so much time is like git add, git commit, git push, and then you go into that host or like use VPN stuff like that, and then you have to pull down those code changes. Now you can like run that code. So that's like 5 minutes at most. But now when you with the automation integration, you can probably just like push the code and then it'll immediately start working on it because you have the code for it. So what kind of like CI/CD stuff do we have? Well, first of all, where can you push your code? Again, there's GitLab, which we have that we host for you guys to push your code. It's like a DevOps platform. You can automate anything. It just like tells you there's like tons of guides on how to set one up, like automation. Yeah, the architecture for this is you push the code, pipeline gets created by GitLab. We'll get more details next slide. Runner picks up a job. Runner executes this job because it's part of the workflow that you described. And then you get to watch this whole pipeline happen. So that brings the idea of GitOps. What is GitOps? Well, you use Git repositories like where you push the code or anything as a single source of truth to deliver infrastructure as code. You want to automate anything. If it takes time, you want to automate it. So there's some benefits with that. There's like a bunch of standard workflows that you can use for application development. There's like increased security because you can have like a pipeline to check all of the security things of your code, make sure it's secured. No like secrets of your vibe coded app pass through. And there's a lot of reliability on it, especially with like visibility. You can watch this whole thing happen. And again, the nice thing about Git is you can have version control. You can always refer, deploy it again. And And then there's consistency across any cluster, um, any cloud, and any on-premise environment, because GitLab is like a same service across all deployments. It's just how you configure it. Um, yeah. Now, it isn't just for ops that it's not just ops that uses this stuff. Red team can also use this stuff. They use like a platform of automation of testing tools for their projects or malicious code and stuff like that. If they want to deploy like a complex application, um, especially if it requires like multiple containers, because we do have some tools about that. Um, we can use a pipeline to set up all of that stuff, to save us all of the time in the world. And again, the nice thing about Git ops and stuff like that is that if there's like a breaking change, you can always refer and it'll automatically deploy. And then personal projects, if you make a change on your resume that is hosted on your blog or website, you could just have the pipeline automatically update that resume for your personal website. And then academia does use this stuff too. If you make a paper using LaTeX, you can always have like a pipeline to automatically compile it and stuff like that. Now, it's not just ops that does all of this heavy work. There's Black Team for the competitions. We do have like an infrastructure team. I'm the infra lead for this year's ISCS. What is infrastructure? Well, we give the rest of the Black Team a backbone of the competition to work off of. And this includes like physical and virtual networking. We gotta create all of the subnets, ports for each team's, our blue teams, like virtual machines. We also have to like set up boxes, set up reverts, make sure there's no problems coming up. If there any problems come up, we can troubleshoot, because we have like a bigger understanding of the whole infrastructure. And yeah. We also work with Terraform and Ansible, because there's like 18 teams, and then there's like 10 box per each team. That's like 180 boxes total. You definitely do not want to go in and configure it for each box, especially if it has like ports, subnets. That's more work. And honestly, without Terraform and Ansible to do all that work for us, it would have been like pain in the ass. So once we provide a backbone, Windows and Linux teams go in and use Ansible to set up a service that the teams will be like competing for. And this is all automated with Ansible. Like again, otherwise they would have been like going through each box, 180 boxes, for example, set up that service, and it keeps all services consistent across all boxes. So that's where operations ops probably get involved, because we use a lot of Terraform, Ansible. It's not just those two teams. There's logging, scoring, store. Logging, we have to like deploy Datadog, monitoring using Ansible, because again, 180 boxes. Scoring, we want to set it up with Terraform and Ansible. We have to like set up like some host to work off this scoring centralized platform. And store, they use a lot of GitLab runner for development. I was hoping Brenner would be here so he can talk about it, but that's okay. He uses a lot of it, and it automates the compilation of the store. It runs like it just turns on the store, and if he makes a simple change, it has to be compiled. So when he pushes the code, it compiles it automatically using GitLab Runner, and then yeah. So what about my personal experience on ops? Well, I done Discord bot. You see OB on the Discord server. I've been part of the development for that, and you can see me constantly fighting OpenStack, like cleaning up projects, making sure all services work together just fine. I'm also a part of like upgrading the stack so you guys can get more resources, making sure it's more smoother, run smoother. And part of the Datadog monitoring. We get more resources, so we have to expand our monitoring resources to these new things. But it's pain in the ass to set up monitoring as well, so we have to use Ansible. So, and then for Black Team, I was part of like Koth, King of the Hill competition for ISS 23, Koth lead for 24, where I was involved like setting up boxes to be exploitable for the competition, mess around with reverting snapshots, networking services, and stuff like that. Where you get to use like Python, Bash, and then automating reverts and stuff like that. And then as part of infrastructure team for RITSEC 25 and infra lead for ISTS 26, there's a lot of Ansible and Terraform involved. One of the big things I just did over the break was setting up a brand new VPN solution that is being used for quals and the ICS. And all of that, well, 90% of that is like all automated deployment using Ansible and Terraform. So you may see the common theme here with Ansible and Terraform. They're used a lot. They're really helpful. They can save you a lot of time and effort. So does that mean you should learn how to use Ansible and Terraform? You should, because you're in cybersecurity. You could do like a lot of testing for your malware, malicious code, or you're interested in like infrastructure, DevOps, and stuff like that. Using Terraform and Ansible can save you a lot of time and effort. If you want to, if you want to get more experience using Terraform and Ansible, more operations side of things, why join it? Well, we have a lot of diverse, interesting technology that we use, which you can use for more learning, personalized growth, and figure out what you want to do for your rest of your life, career-wise, or what you don't enjoy. So we have switches, cloud compute, and ton of servers, and then you can gain more details on like Linux and Windows for competitions and stuff. And then we also do have like big enterprise technology in the small environment. Like I said, a lot of companies use OpenStack, like NASA. So if you're working on OpenStack, you could be basically working at NASA or something like that. Because you learn how to build, troubleshoot, secure, and deploy on these things. So you get much good experience that you can use for your resume and your career-wise. And then you can always make the club better. Um, if there's something you think the club should have, then join us on the ops, and then deploy that, and then watch as the club members use that thing. So it's very fulfilling. Um, and then obviously we don't have competitive pay. I'm sorry, it'll be working us for us free. But may I ask how to join? We do like rolling applications and stuff, and then we do like interviews. If you want to join Black Team, RSEC and ISTSCAs do post like sign up forms and announcements, so be on the lookout for those. And that's it. Any questions you got for me? Thank you. Oh, clap. Thank you. Hi, Leah. Yeah. Yeah. I do. I do have a lot of information in my head. I do run out of space. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I got a portfolio.
You get this for 7 presentations. If you present once, you get a lanyard. Think about it. Think about it. Get the cut. For 7 presentations, you get a portfolio. For 1, you get a RITSEC lanyard. Yeah, you get rewarded if you present for education and research.
Demo time. Hey, demo person. Get up here. Hey, look at that.
Demos are live. Owen couldn't be here today, but if you have any questions that come up, we'll probably be able to help you, or Lucas. We'll find somebody to help. Just raise your hand. You can go onto flags.ritsec.club, make a, go on there, make an account, and check out the latest demos.
Testing. Testing, testing. Hey everyone. Hi. It's time for research. Unfortunately, thank you. Unfortunately, Hayden couldn't be in here today. We'll probably see him next week. So no security news today either, unfortunately. But tune in next week for security news. Today we have the wonderful Matt Cooper in here today. Say hi, Matt. He's gonna be talking about some pretty cool stuff, so I'll hand it off to him now.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Appreciate that. My name is Matt. I am an alumni of RIT 2014. When I was going here, the degree was called computer forensics. So that's what's on my degree. I think now that program is computer security. Is that right? Cybersecurity now. That's the yeah, it's been changed a few times. So anyway, real quick on the audience here. So what range do we have? So how many undergrads? Okay. Okay, so no grad students. Perfect. And first year? Okay. Second year? Third? About to graduate. Okay, all right. How many have had your first co-op? Okay. How'd it go? Fun. All right, you learned something cool. Great. Awesome. Good deal. All right. How many folks like to program? Okay. Good deal. Favorite programming languages? Python? No Python. Get with it, kids. Come on. All right. Perl. Okay, good job. Good job. All right. All right. Node. Well, it got to be somebody with Node. No? Oh, okay. First Google assignment. All right. So this is research hour. I expect you all to Google as we're going through this because I don't want to be your babysitter. And we're going to talk about some interesting stuff to Google. First, Google up how to learn Python. Yep, right there. First, Python for beginners. Everybody, right now. I'm giving you this tip, this pro tip. Python is the language of InfoSec. It's been decided. I don't know who decided it. I walked out the door knowing Perl like the back of my hand, and that was the very last time I ever used Perl. So learn Python. That's your next assignment. So, all right, a little my history. I graduated from RIT in 2014 with a bachelor's in computer forensics. I was a non-traditional student, or a non-tred, as you all like to call us. I didn't go to college until I was in my 30s. I was a very poor high school student, disinterested in learning in general, pretty smart, mostly self-taught, but not interested in school. In my 30s, I came back, I was very interested in school, so I got a lot more out of it in my 30s. When I left RIT, I went to work for a company called Parsons. They put me through my clearance, so I got a TSSCI with all the bells and whistles, so that was very interesting. And I worked in the DC Beltway area for about 4 years before I went to the commercial side of the business. So while I was in the DC Beltway area, I worked for Parsons, and our project got sold to Lockheed Martin. So I spent time working with Lockheed Martin, and then we got sold to Leidos. So I worked with Leidos for a while. What we were building were a variety of cloud automation tools that eventually became AWS GovCloud. So I ended up working, basically badging over to work for AWS to help build out GovCloud and then also to help commercial customers adopt. So it was a very interesting time at the birth of cloud. I heard earlier you guys, your admin folks here are running OpenStack. OpenStack was one of the first cloud technologies that we were encountered with during the Ice House range. I can't remember what the next version of it was, but our job was to migrate people from the Ice House version up to the most recent at that time, which was a decade ago. So during that time with OpenStack, we learned how to get OpenStack into basically the size of a suitcase. So it was a very interesting program to be part of and watch the evolution of a technology that really was, at the time, cloud was the Wild West, right? So nobody knew how to put guardrails on it. You could do all this interesting stuff with it. Everybody's afraid of it. So now we're a decade on. There's a new Wild West. I'm sure you guys are seeing it with the AI. So Anyway, so worked with AWS for a while, did a lot of very interesting cloud work. One of the things that we wanted to be able to do was take large enterprises and help them move to the cloud. So think about Paychex, think about Travelers Insurance, think about the New York Stock Exchange. Moving an enterprise like that into the cloud is a huge undertaking. And so we would work with companies to help them strategize, get funding from all sorts of places, because believe it or not, companies can't actually afford to do some of the upgrades they need to do. And then help them build a plan. What you Googling now? Yeah, there you go. Okay. So just on that regard, cloud computing. Pick a cloud provider, specialize. Pick a secondary cloud provider, know what it is. Pick a third cloud provider and just learn the lingo. There's no point being comprehensive on 3 cloud providers. No employer is ever going to expect it. Pick one that you can do everything you need to do on. Pick a second one just as a backup, because sometimes you don't like their pricing or something like that. Anyway, pro tip, write that down. Anyway, we were helping companies move to the cloud, and one of the nagging things that kept happening to us was, in order to move applications to the cloud, we have to have identity there. And identity predominantly lived on-prem. And that's when I started focusing on, okay, why does this digital identity have to live on-prem? Where is all this sensitive material? So think about cryptography and think about your public and private key pairs of traditional workforce and consumer identity at the time. That was still the basis, right? So we had a lot of cryptographic material that had to live somewhere, be encrypted, and nobody wanted to touch that in the cloud. So that's when I started to specialize in identity. Cut to, 3-4 years on from that, I worked with a company called Okta. I don't know if you all have ever heard of Okta. So at the time, I worked with a company called Auth0. Auth0 is a consumer identity product. Okta is a workforce identity product. Auth0, actually, when they were founded by, with a lot of their workforce from our IT. I remember them recruiting during my time. Anyway, they got bought by Okta for $6.4 billion. So just to give you a idea of what kind of money's out there for these SaaS services. So they got purchased, and in the ensuing 2 years, all the old guard kind of shedded off, and that's where I started to focus on fraud. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is the fraud that we see and the root of the fraud that we see, particularly in digital identity. I'm going to give you some things to research, some ideas to become familiar with. Trust me, I can't tell the whole story in just a short talk like this, so there's a lot that you'll want to Google. So as we go through, if you have questions, please shout them out, and we will get our professional Googler here to Google up, okay? So first, social engineering. How familiar are you with social engineering? Very. In your exercises, when you do your blue teams and your red teams, how many times do you incorporate social engineering? Probably not very much, right? Because there's not a good mitigation for it. Social engineering is the absolute 100% most effective way to hack any company. Most attacks that infiltrate company data don't actually use technical controls. They use social engineering. They trick a user. So some common social engineering attacks that you want to be aware of. The first one is phishing. Does anybody know what phishing is? I'm assuming you all do. Okay. So phishing is basically just attempting to trick a user into entering their username and password into a fraudulent site, and then ideally logging the user into the target service so that they're not detecting the actual attack. That's the ideal scenario. Now, sometimes you'll see phishing attacks that fail at this. So you'll go and you'll log in and it'll fail and it'll show you an error screen. That's not what the attackers want. That increases the probability that they'll get caught, that they'll get reported. So phishing attacks are highly successful because people aren't very perceptive on their devices. And further, if you look at most mobile devices where a lot of this traffic is originating from, the actual URL bar is mostly hidden, right? So to actually verify a URL like we tell everybody to do, oh, look at the domains, it's not easy for users to see that. It's not by default, right? So it's not jumping in your face. So the most effective method for attacking any sort of service, it's going to start at the login box, and it's going to use a social engineering attack, so typically a phishing attack. So to mitigate this attack, I'm going to give you the next thing to Google up, new tab, are passkeys. How many people know what passkeys are? Oh, that's too low. All right, everybody get Googling. So passkeys are a cryptographic tie that link a few very important things. Number one, your user agent. That could be your phone. That could be the mobile native app. The domain, that is the domain you're visiting, and your biometrics, which means that all three of those things must match in order for you to authenticate to that website. So what happens if somebody tries to phish you from going from abc.com to going to abcd.com? Well, cryptography already tells us that since the two domains don't match, any ensuing biometric attempt is going to fail because my local passkey is encrypted using those three factors. If one of the factors doesn't match, then the authentication fails, and therefore I can thwart a phishing attack. So passkeys right now are pretty much the only way to successfully 100% mitigate a phishing attack without having your users to be perceptive, because guess what? Your users won't be perceptive. Fair enough? Everybody understand that? Okay. Now, here's the problem with passkeys. Another thing to Google. There is a long tail on passkey support. So passkeys are a device-bound cryptographic artifact, right? So your device has to support them, and your device has to support the biometric input. Not all devices do, which means that even if I try to get all of my 100% of my users onto passkeys, well, I can't actually do that because they might show up one day with a device that doesn't support it, and what am I going to do, lock them out? Well, in some cases, maybe, but chances are no, because I want their money, right? I see you nodding yes. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not the way the world works. I have asked many a company to simply fire their customers. Not one has done it yet. So you can't just throw the user out, so you got to support something, and this is where the password reset comes in. So one of the most highly attacked surfaces in your company is your password reset. So when you guys land somewhere and you look at your company, just go to your company's webpage and look at the password reset. Chances are somebody's attacking that every single day because they're trying to use it to take over legitimate accounts so they can build synthetic identities. So the password reset flow is the next thing where you really have to add additional protection, monitoring, and things like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about it to mitigate that shortcoming of passkey. So just add that to your Googling. Okay. So we talked about credential stuffing attacks, or no, we talked about phishing attacks, social engineering attacks, other type of social engineering attacks. Is this, by the way, is it grokking with everybody? Entertaining and enjoyable? Okay. Phone centers. How many people have called a phone center, worked at a phone center, know a company that has a phone center? Okay. So phone centers are the next biggest vector in social engineering attacks. Phone centers are inherently there to support users that are locked out of things. That's inherently why people create phone centers. So when you call a phone center, you're already telling them, I don't have one of my identity factors. So that automatically increases the complexity of trying to identify that user when I'm going to give them sensitive information. Oftentimes, I'm going to help them reset their password or reset an account. So being able to identify folks in phone centers is very difficult because really, what do you have? You have their voice. Maybe you have a caller ID, but caller ID is spoofable, right? So phone centers, you need to add additional mitigations in to prevent these social engineering attacks. Because think about this. How many of you, quick poll, banking. All right, how many of you bank local? Right, down the street or in the county, something like that. Right, small few. How many of you bank with a big bank, like a Bank of America, a Chase Bank? Okay. How many of you strictly just use Robinhood? No? Venmo? Just use Venmo? My son just uses Venmo. That's all he has. He has no other bank account, it's Venmo. And it works well for him. Okay. So think about those folks that have the big bank accounts with Bank of America, Chase, whatever. Those folks, they have a lot of resources, right? A lot of money. They're rich. So they can go out and they can build defenses, and they know they're already a big target. So they can do things like add enhanced liveness detection or selfie identification, those types of things into their user experiences because they can afford them. But think about the ecosystem of local banks. Most local banks out there don't have an IT system. They don't have a team of engineers or computer scientists or RIT grads to help them. They have a call center, and the call center is quite literally their smartest tech support people. And when they identify people in that call center, they identify them because they recognize their voice, right? So great method, but it's more complex now and more sophisticated because, so passwords don't actually identify a human, just so you guys are aware. They're something you have, but they're not the remainder of the triad. You guys, are you familiar with something you have, something you are, something you know? Okay, good. Credential stuffing attacks are successful. What they're not necessarily attempting to pop the account that you have. What they're doing is they're trying to find passwords that might be able to work multiple places, and really they're ultimately looking for your financial accounts. So what you'll have is millions and millions of passwords that have been dumped on Pastebin. People have picked them up. They're using bots, and they're going out and they're attacking identity surface, usually login and password recovery flows, attempting to test passwords that they found on the internet across millions and millions of accounts. As soon as they hit one that they have a successful authentication, one of two things might happen. One, they might change the password right away. Sometimes they want to lock them out and they want to keep the original user from using them. That's not as effective for them, though, because people tend to report that. Like if your Facebook account gets taken over, you go to Facebook, you create a secondary account, you try to find all your friends, notify all your friends, hey, my account's taken over. That's not what a bad guy wants. What a bad guy'd rather do is sit in your account for however long and use it to their own good. Maybe they get one or two messages out there that they can push a link to a free Viagra website or whatever they want to push, right? So what they'll try and do is they'll try and sit in there undetected. And then what they'll attempt to do is get many accounts of a similar identity, similar namesake, and then use those as a synthetic identity. So use those to correlate one identity that they can use to either social engineer other people or just otherwise push messaging, push campaign messaging, other phishing campaigns, those types of things. Oh, I forgot, phishing campaigns, new tab. Are you guys familiar with Evil Jinx? Evilgenics, they pronounce them different ways. Okay, it's a dead easy tool. You guys have all taken ethics already, right? Okay. Yeah, all right, that's important. Keep that in mind. They make you take ethics here for a reason. All right, Evil Jinx is a dead easy tool to create a duplicate of practically any login form that you'd ever want to create. So if you go to a website, you see their login form and say, hey, I want to phish this password. Go to Evil Jinx, Evilgenics, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's got a handy little interface. It's super easy. You give it the domain, it spits you out all the HTML, CSS, whatever, makes it look right, and sets you up a database in the back end so that when users enter their password, it hits a database. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and you can pay for a subscription for Pro. So, yeah. Right. Oh, wow, look at, they even have boxes. Look at these guys. So this is some, let me tell you what, people have used their imagination on this platform and they have gotten really good. Passkeys, though, passkeys thwart this right here. And companies use this for internal stuff. Like when you work for a company, here's another industry kind of piece of tidbit. You will inherently get, and maybe in your co-ops you've already done this, you will get an email that says, oh, your medical plan's been updated. Click here. And you'll go, hey, this is spam. I've been trained on this. And you'll shoot it off to the admin. And they'll go, oh, you won the prize. This was just a test. And you're going to want to slap somebody. Don't slap them. You're going to lose your job if you do that. But this is what they're using for those things. They stand up the Evil Jinx Pro, and they use it internally, and they try to phish their own employees. And I think it's incredibly, one, unethical. Right? Thanks very much. I'm working for somebody who tries to phish me all day. That's great. And number two, well, I think the annoyance of it, right? Why, like every single thing that I'm doing all day long, I got to wait and see if, this is another trap they tried to catch me in. And oh, by the way, there was no prize for winning, right? If you're going to do something like that, I should get a pack of lifesavers or something, for crying out loud, not just a pat on the back, good job. So anyway, Evil Jinx. All right, now let's go to the Office of Public of DOJ on the left-hand tab there. So this is kind of where I wanted to leave the story off to equate this to the real world, and this is what we see out there today. So cut to the history of about, let's say, 2022-ish. And what happened in 2022 economically was a massive number of recruiters got laid off. So companies just started purging recruiters, and all of those recruiters, they went out, and some of them said, hey, I'm going to hang out my own shingle. And they went and signed up for websites like iSIMS and Indeed.com, LinkedIn, you see them. And they started saying, okay, I'm a private recruiter. Here's my job listings. And what they were basically doing was taking big companies, duplicating their job listings, and trying to kind of broker the relationships with the employees with the companies. And it was a shift from recruiting being done as a corporate function to now recruiting being done as a third-party contract function. So that's the first thing that happened. Now, these recruiters, they're not generally technical people. There are technical people among them, but they're not predominantly technical. So they started using AI, and AI started producing these job listings for them, change them just slightly, whatever. And then they get the responses. They started using AI to churn through those responses. So that's all happening for probably a year and a half up until mid-2023 when the real heavy tech layoffs started happening. This is when software engineers got laid off. This is when architects got laid off, computer scientists got laid off. It's still happening today, by the way. And we lost probably 500,000 easy off of the technical market to layoffs. So when they all hit the market, they did kind of the same thing that all the recruiters did, except for in the opposite direction. They spun up AI bots and they started applying for jobs and creating resumes and just hitting the apply button, right? So everybody was inundated, and then you had the big providers in the middle, iSIMS and Indeed and LinkedIn, whatever, say, well, you know what, we'll help you. We'll add our own layer of AI to all that. So you got these kind of three competing layers of AI. Then on top of that, the fraudsters were like, well, hey, wait a second, we could do something with this too. So they started to apply to these jobs by the millions. And the AI on the back end was down selecting them by the millions and scheduling interviews by the millions. And when they'd show up to the interviews, they would know the corporate policies. And some corporate policies say, hey, listen, you can't demand that they turn on their video. You can't demand that they answer in a certain way. And so you had an interviewer that's allowing an interview to happen with audio only, getting weird responses and not allowed to question the weird responses. Then those go into a pool of different hiring decisions, and eventually an AI bot gets hired. And there's documented cases of this happening. Now, the first MO of this attack was just to get a paycheck, just get one paycheck and walk away. And if they get one paycheck times 10, hey, that's great. Get it times 100, we're doing great. Don't have to worry about sustaining. Well, then some folks got smart and said, hey, listen, a lot of American companies, they're obligated by law to publish performance improvement plans. And I bet that we can make an AI agent that's good enough to do a performance improvement plan. And maybe we can get 1 and 2 and 3 and 10 paychecks. Maybe we can go 6 months. And then we started seeing documented cases of 18-month-long performance improvement plans where AI bots are able to produce just enough content to fit into the performance improvement definitions and extend those payments just a little bit longer, right? And of course, U.S. hiring laws didn't help because companies are obligated. They can't just fire somebody. They have to have like proper cause. So that was the first wave of AI attacks where it was just to kind of hit and go. This wave is a new type of wave. So there's a few new interesting things here. So in this case, the DOJ in June, they arrested, I think it was 70. You're all going to double check me anyway because you're going to Google this. You already have, haven't you? Right? Yeah. Okay. So 16 states, they found SIM farms, they found phone farms, they found laptop farms. And what these folks were doing, and two things that were different. One, they were siphoning all their paychecks back to the North Korean military's weapons program. So that was unique. And the second thing was unique is they did a good job. They actually didn't have anybody trigger a performance improvement plan on them. They took assignments, they returned assignments, they met the requirements, they did it in a timely fashion, and most of the companies at the time of the DOJ bust had no idea that they were hiring North Koreans and AI bots to do the job. So this is where it hits home big time for me because number one, it's not like North Korea is our best buddy anyhow. But number two, I mean, hell, these companies are trying to put all of us through these ringer of technical interviews, and we're not getting them, but the North Korean AI bots are. What's going on there? That's not right. So anyway, so what do we do about this? There's a lot to do about this. The answer for AI is often AI, but preceding AI was machine learning. So we did a lot of research throughout industry and throughout government. DARPA led a lot of this, where we did a lot of research on facial structures and facial points and being able to detect liveness from facial structures, and then also being able to detect manipulated videos, which I know you guys are doing a lot of at RIT, that the deep fake research on manipulated videos after the fact. Think about the massive volume of data and photographic data and biometric data that creates. It's huge. So that's a very big problem that has not yet been solved. But here's the thing for you guys. This AI ecosystem where we have now the capability at quite literally the fingertips of some of the, what's the word? The lowest common denominator of criminals, right? So it used to be criminals were a little bit stupider than all of our smartest people, used to be, because we always realized that, hey, if we follow the rules and do things right, we can actually make a better living. With AI, they don't have to be very smart. So the idea of the script kiddie that we used to have, like we used to worry about all the time, is a 17-year-old in their mother's basement that happens to write a script that's doing something to our systems, the script kiddie, right? Well, now you got the script kiddie on steroids. You got AI-enabled script kiddies, and they can create very, very convincing, very good video that by the eye is difficult to distinguish. And particularly when you have call centers that have a high volume where they don't have a lot of time to spend on verifying an identity, it's very easy to get one past them. So the AI and facial recognition, AI analysis of liveness is a wide open field. It's something, if I were your age group, I would spend a lot of time focusing on, because he who fixes it first is going to win. That's a big problem. So I've been talking a while. I know we lost one audience member already. I see one guy over there packing his bag up. Sorry to call you up, pal. Any questions? No questions? Come on, guys. Did I bore you? Did I bore everybody? Seriously? Go ahead.
So if we're talking about waves, where would you say that we're at right now? Is it really that next push of who can refine an AI agent first wins, and then we enter another wave? Or are we hitting the bottom of one and entering a new one?
So, very interesting question, and there's a lot to it. So there's a few things that are all going to collide. So one, today, about 70% of the internet is home-rolled identity stacks. Some guy who read the OAuth protocol, that's another one to Google, OAuth, or OIDC protocol, and said, I can make a server that works like this because it's a protocol, right? How hard can it be? Turns out very hard. But about 70% of the internet today is still home-rolled. And they don't have any defenses against synthetic AI identity, none whatsoever. So the first wave is going to be those home-rolled identity stacks are all going to either get popped or going to become not home-rolled. So that's the first wave. The second thing with AI is that people are going to hit the privacy threshold. Right now, there's no good model, or no decided model, I'll say, that outlines how to give AI permissions, how to scope and give a threshold to those AI permissions, meaning here's the limit of what you're allowed to do and also the time limit for which you're allowed to do it, right? Being able to scope those permissions. And then most importantly, once an AI agent is in flight and I decide I want to revoke those permissions, how do I do that, right? Because you have the concept now of an AI, they want to interact with me as the user, but they're also going to interact through, say, the ChatGPT web interface. And if I ask it to go search for a product, well, maybe it's going to interact with Amazon or Walmart or something like that. And then, okay, I want to buy that product. Well, now is it going to interact with my bank? Is it going to interact with my digital wallet? How am I going to make that happen? And what kind of permission and consent do I have to give to this AI agent? And again, Whatever permission that you give, make sure you can bring it back, because guess what? A non-deterministic computer is not necessarily your friend. And I want to underlie that. From the security point of view, we are not playing around. The consequences of an AI agent going rogue, yeah, it might drain somebody's bank account, but it might also disable our national security. That's the space where we have to be thinking, and that's why those ethical lines there of just because we can doesn't mean we should. Right now, the just because we can crowd is winning the debate. They are the loudest. They are the ones that automate everything. How can I make it easier for the consumer to pay and give money from them to me? That's what the main push out there in consumer land is. Government's a little more skeptical. You see this. I don't know. Have you guys heard of the Genesis mission? So it's a recent executive order mission. There's two major things that the federal government is doing right now in AI, and you can take this as here speak, but go ahead and Google. I'm not an expert on these, and I'm not the broker of these. We are involved in them. Genesis mission, and I don't remember what the other mission is. So the first half of the infrastructure spend is on data centers, right? And that's where you hear like the big NVIDIA investments, the Oracle investments. They want to build data centers, and what the problem we have right now is that these data centers consume so much electricity that you can't just plop them down into a city center. Right, so they have to find a place to where they can put them, where they can draw electricity. But you can't just go to some farm town and then just black them out for a month while you build your data center. So what they're doing right now is they're going about and they are looking for property on top of the oil and natural gas pockets, because they want to basically refine on site and generate their own power. Right, so they can be self-sustaining. Which is not a terrible idea, but there's other implications, right? You got to build the infrastructure, you got to build the data pipeline, right? So it's not fully solved by any means. So that's one half of it. The other half of it is the Genesis mission, and that is, okay, what do we do with AI to, number one, defend our national security, ensure that if this is weaponized against us, that we have some defense capability, and then number two, how do we unleash the power of AI for our American workforce? Make efficiencies in, say, manufacturing or financial or economic growth, those types of things. So that's what the Genesis mission is. I think personally the tail on the Genesis mission is a lot longer than the tail on the data center mission, because I think data centers are finite. You build enough and eventually you kind of can slow down. But with the AI and generating AI products, I think there's a long tail on that. So, and I think identity is the first. Right now in the Genesis mission, they're in the first 40 days. And the first objective is once we figure out, step one, figure out what resources we can bring to bear, right? What compute resources, what minds do we have, et cetera. Second part, figure out what problems we're going to solve. Well, one of the first problems we have to solve is the identity overlay. How do we give consent and how do we revoke consent? So I hope I answered your question. Any others? Everybody's just sleepy. Did you have a long day of it? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted you to, like, you previously mentioned that the crowd that wants to integrate AI into everything is like winning right now.
Right.
You do not like the idea of having AI integrated with everything, right?
It's not that I'm not really pro or con AI. I want to make sure that the user always maintains control of their permissions. And so there's a few things at play. When you look at traditional banking is built on the back of what's called an automated clearinghouse. And really it used to be someone would mail a ticket to somebody, they would punch a few numbers and mail a ticket back, and that's how we move money. Now it's all digital. But that automated clearinghouse is dependent on a fiat currency, which means it's really a pay-to-play system, right? So you really do have to have a lot of infrastructure or access to certain software capability or have a staff and things like that. So there's economic barriers that prevent you from playing at the level of back-end banking that some of the big players play at. Enter crypto. Crypto's decentralized, right? Now it's got its downside in that a lot of crypto is not stable. Enter stable coins. So now banks are warming up a little bit, consumers are warming up a little bit, And you have a fully functional wallet ecosystem now. So you have Apple on your device as your wallet, you have Google on your device as your wallet, and then you have private hosted wallets like Coinbase and even Robinhood and Venmo. Really all they are is just hosted digital wallets. So they're coming in and saying, we now have a way to go from fiat currency, i.e. the coins and cash that you have in your bank account, into crypto, into the digital wallet. Now what do we do with it? So that's one side of the argument right there. And their objective, by the way, the wallet does not make them money just holding coin. The wallet makes them money transacting coin. So what they want you to do is they don't want you to just save it all up and leave it there. They want you moving that. The more that coin moves the market, the more value that there is there. So what they're looking for is, okay, where can people spend this coin? Now, recently the Genius Act was, another Google term, the Genius Act. The Genius Act was passed, and this democratized currency, really, and enabled a pathway to a digital crypto coin. And so now the stock market is saying, well, okay, since this is now a legitimate currency, I don't need to go to fiat. Can I buy and trade stocks on the market using my crypto coin? So that's one way we want to integrate. The next side of it is, okay, well, that's good for all the investors, and that's really important for the economy because that will put banks in an entirely different place. The next piece is, okay, well, what about the consumer market, the people who buy televisions and toasters and cans of beer and bags of pretzels? What do we do with them? And that's where the AI comes in. They're realizing people are using AI more like Google, more like hey, show me all the things that match this screenshot I found at Amazon, that type of thing, where they want to compare and find and buy consumer products. And so that conversation is where they're going, hey, we want to interact with the digital wallet. Now, the digital wallet is automatable, right? But with the digital wallet, because it's still a currency, you have regulations, you have consent that's required. And the AI generally it doesn't like consent because consent is friction. It pauses everything. It makes everything less autonomous, and AI is trying to drive more autonomous. So you kind of have this balance back and forth where on one side of it, the AI wants to get into that wallet with as little consent, as little friction as possible to let you spend money to loosen up the economy. And believe me, spending is good for the economy. We've got to spend. We can't all just go home and save and everything will be all right. You got to buy, you got to sell, you got to save. So that's kind of the contention that's happening right now. The AI folks that I hear in the room are generally commercial minded. There's very few folks that I notice in the security fields, or at least there are very few people in the conversation that have been shell shocked before. And that's something that you'll all go out into your first gig. Oh, by the way, how many want to be red teamers? Oh, great. I don't have to. Okay, I'm going to burst. Okay, no, that's perfect. So I was about to say, out of all these, maybe one of you will. I saw 2 raise their hands, so good luck, guys. The red team is the short effort. The long effort is responding to what the red team found, and that's where people spend most of their time. So if you're going out to be a red teamer, study like that, but just understand when you get out there, you're actually going to be responding to what they found, because the money isn't actually fixing the problems. So, at any rate, so when you have people like you go out into the industry and you do your first red team report, you're going to have a moment where the pucker factor is going to grow and you're going to go, holy shit. And you're going to realize the gravity of what we do in this business. We really do keep the world safe. If you go out and get a gig with some of these big providers, there are some really crazy things that are happening out there. And these AI conversations about spending all our money with AI, there's very few people that I know in those conversations that have actually experienced a breach, have actually experienced the gravity of what happens when autonomy goes wrong. And that's where I kind of hesitate to say, like, guys, okay, this is good. I like AI. I think it's very useful for society. But we really do have to think things through here, because this could be more than a double-edged sword. It's like that razor blade that's just a razor blade on all the sides, right? That answer? Good. Any other questions? Yeah.
So part of the discussions that have surrounding AI in industry settings is the difference between some managers on having AI replace workers versus being used as
Yeah, so I don't think AI has the capability to replace people. I know that companies have tried it, and I know there's companies that claim that they've done it too. Here's the thing, and you all get this too. So, and I encourage you to do this. You all need to set your own bar of what quality means to you, and be unapologetic about it. Right? In my opinion, the quality that I get back from AI responses has never met the bar. Never. It's always loose. It's always superficial. Sometimes it's invented. You know, I went to AI and I said, hey, listen, give me 10 legitimate GPS coordinates of landmarks in the United States. And it gave me 10 landmarks in the United States along with GPS coordinates. And none of the GPS coordinates went to a landmark. Not one. And that was a pretty simple, like that's written down somewhere, I'm sure of it, right? So if it can't meet the bar on simple things like that, I don't see it meeting the bar in the future. But I will say this, in terms of iterative work, it can help you raise your own bar. In terms of like, hey, here's my idea, help me figure this out. It will give you good ideas. It will give you good output. I ask it all the time, so we work with data science quite a bit. Hey, why can't I get this data to transpose the way I want it to? It doesn't have any idea why, but it comes up with another thing I can try that I didn't already try. So in that regard, I think it's very beneficial and useful. I've never, like, you know, I have people call me up all the time. Well, I'm going to replace your sales guy with AI. Well, you know, the first guy that actually does that right, I mean, I'll take him seriously, sure. Our salespeople, they're out there making relationships. They're shaking hands. They're kissing babies. They're buying coffees. I don't see AI out there, you know, sitting across the table and talking to people about their problems. So I don't see it happening. You know what I mean? But again, pro AI, just, you know, let's keep an eye on it. So, any others? All right. Yeah. Right. Right, and that's actually what we do, and that's the reason that I brought that up because we have that. So, what companies are doing? One is around their application process. At the time of down select, we're encouraging companies to do a selfie identification with liveness detection. So with liveness detection, what we can do is we can verify the real timeness of a photo by taking many in a row and watching pixel movements. AI currently does not get pixel movements right in its video, and so we can detect synthetic identity in that way. Using passkeys is another thing that we tell our customers to implement, because passkeys, again, since they're tied to a biometric that's on your device, the AI cannot reproduce that. So we do have mitigations that we give to people. We do work with employment clearinghouses to implement it in their applications. But the problem is this, and it's much like a lot of these other, ecosystems. Not every company subscribes to a third-party service for this. So not every company is using Indeed. Not every company is using iSIM. Some of them stood up their own server, and they're bringing them in through a WordPress form or whatever like that, right? And they don't have any way to add additional assurances there, so they just got to kind of guess it. And, you know, there's these arguments, well, I can just ask it to say, like this one guy, he did a video, and I don't dispute the authenticity of his video, where he knew he had a North Korean guy, at least highly suspected it, and he asked the guy to disparage Dear Leader, and he wouldn't. And he used that as a cue, like, okay, this is a North Korean. He won't say anything bad about Dear Leader. And I'm sure in a spot case that works, but as these attacks start to get to the millions and millions of attacks, that's not going to work anymore, right? And think about the anti-phishing lesson that you hear. What's the first thing they tell you when you get a suspicious email in your inbox, right? As security experts, not by end users. As security experts, what do they tell you? Well, inspect the logo, inspect the links, inspect the this, inspect the that, and take a look. Well, we've been telling users that for years, but it doesn't work because people don't check. And there's also other cases, like, a lowercase L and an I. They look alike. They're easy to trick people with, and attackers are still using that in force today as one of the easiest attacks. So it's kind of the same thing where if you tell somebody, well, hey, you're going to have 15 interviews today, I want you to pay really close attention to the way the person talks. Well, by the 10th or 11th interview, they're going to be so drowned out with signal that they're not going to be able to, right? It's the same overwhelming of data. So, we gotta have technical controls that can weed those out, and then personal interaction on those edge cases is what we try to do for that. Yeah. Oh, yep. Right. Right. And here's the thing I think about in this regard. So authentication is at the edge of free speech. It's also at the edge of business speech. Business speech is not free speech, by the way. When you do business with another company, you don't get to say anything you want. They can terminate their business with you. Your employer can do that too, right? But common utility service cannot do that. So if you want to think about your right to free speech, it really depends on your access to these platforms. And as such, providers are realizing that they need to take the protection of that much more seriously. And so they are, like you're saying, they're being proactive and they're adding additional verifications. Now, there still is pushback and trust on things like passkeys. Passkeys, a lot of people think, well, that biometric data is going to get sent off to the internet. In some passkey scenarios where you have a synchronized passkey, that can happen, but predominantly passkeys are actually a local device. So the first thing you have to do, and these companies that care about this are doing this. You see messaging campaigns that say, switch to a passkey, here's what it is, right? So what they're trying to do is attach that three-way cryptographic credential to their relationship with you. That makes you unphishable. And that is a very good way to protect against AI bots. Now you have the next layer. Some businesses, they require a lot of information from you, right? So think about you're buying an insurance policy or you're going to the doctor's office. Has anybody done a digital check-in in a doctor's office? Right? The amount of information that they have you transmit every single time. You just gave it to them last week, you show up, they give it to them again. Now what these guys are gonna do is, yeah, they're gonna protect your authenticated session with the passkey. That's the passkey to get a token. Well, once that token is created, well, that's not the end of the security relationship. I still have to protect that token, and not every application is really good at protecting that token. So what companies are starting to do is recognize, oh, okay, now what I need to do is I need to keep track of where that token should be coming from, and make sure every time that that token is coming from that place. It's called a sender constraint, or you guys might have heard of digital proof of possession, or I'm sorry, wait, not digital proof of, anyway, DPOP, proof of possession. Basically, you have to prove that both sides of the transaction have access to a private key before you transmit any security information, DPOP. So that's a back-end technique that companies and application owners are rolling out to mitigate this on their own. But really, we're still at an inflection point where, like I said, 70% of the internet is home rolled. And these are still big companies, by the way. 70% of the internet, if you even take the top 50% of the internet, that's a big number as far as the economy goes. These are big companies that roll their own identity stack, and I don't see a lot of them preparing the way that they should. So I would argue, like, when you go and set up an account, you do want to think about, is this provider prepared for the AI identity attack of me that's going to happen to them? So my bank, for example, I had to go down to my bank and say, look, I know that it's going to be easy for somebody to spoof my identity. I put it all over. I mean, I put my face on the internet. I put video out there. I do these types of things. Somebody somewhere is going to get a video of me and be able to reproduce me to the T, really. So I need to go to my bank and say, hey, are you prepared for this? Now, my bank's small enough, they'll take my call. You guys that bank with Bank of America, guess what? They're not going to pick up the phone. So you got to kind of hope that they're doing their diligence. And I would say this, as security professionals, if you don't believe that a company you're doing business with is going to do that diligence, then please don't do business with them. You know, lead by example and help people understand, I'm not going to do business with this company because I don't believe that they're prepared to take care of my data. How many people are aware of the Wegmans facial recognition, New York City? Okay, all right, so a lot of you are not. Okay, Wegmans, our beloved. I've done a lot of work with Wegmans. I have a very high esteem and respect for them. Their New York stores were a victim to theft and vandalism. And so what they did is they created a company-wide policy that they were going to record the biometrics of their shoppers in the New York City store and share it with all of their other stores and share it with all of their neighbors. So that means that if you walked into a New York City Wegmans and then came home here to Rochester, there's a possibility that they could know about your trip to New York. And further, there's a possibility that they could deny you service based on that trip. Further, there's a case that their neighbor could deny you service based on your trip to Wegmans, whether you did anything or not, or whether you had due process. So in that scenario, I acted with my wallet and I told people in my network group, I'm not going to shop at Wegmans anymore. And I told Wegmans too, on every public channel I could tell them, because you're violating the privacy of your customers and you're not notifying them and you're giving them no meaningful way to opt out whatsoever, right? And that's important. You guys control your data, and the people you protect, the people you advise, they want to control their data too. So I voted with my wallet. I'm not going to go to Wegmans anymore. Is that annoying? Yes, it's fucking annoying. I love that store. But you got to do what you got to do sometimes. It's tough, right? So.
So that was a little bit closer to my question, because I agree with your opinion about like the critical data, like the
Right.
hospitals, I don't know, like some government
Right.
websites and stuff. But if it comes to like YouTube or some e-commerce, you know what I'm saying?
Right. And
Sometimes I want to stay more private.
right, and that's where you have the dissonance and the idea that people that are being deplatformed need a way to get onto the platform. And that's really where this idea of the decentralized identity comes in. You know, you have a lot of folks that say, well, shouldn't my driver's license just be my credit card? Well, that's fine as long as you want the DMV in charge of whether or not you're able to spend money, right? So certain times you have to decouple that identity and say, you know, a Gmail address, for example. We know in the identity business, it's a very low friction way to allow you to log in. However, it's a very low grade identity. You could have 10 Gmail addresses. I assume you all have multiple Gmail addresses. I do, right? So can I really say that Bob at Gmail and Bob.Smith at Gmail and Bob.SmithJ at Gmail are the same people or different people? No, not really. Can Google tell? Maybe. Are they going to tell me? No. So yeah, there's a different grade of identity. And really for the purpose, and I support this, you should be able to have some anonymity out there on the internet, which is why, like, conversely with the conversation on the crypto coins and the stable coin, well, a lot of the stable coin proponents, they say, oh, well, get rid of these anonymous coins because they're unstable. Well, wait a second. Yes, they're a little less stable, but to some people, anonymity is the absolute most critical thing about their spending. So I don't want to go out and destroy, unstable coins because they have a use. But I do want people to know, are you dealing with a stable coin or an unstable coin, right? People need to know at the face what they're dealing with. So that's kind of what guides my thought on that. And the other thing I tell customers, and we have a social authentication. So you probably all see this. Log in with YouTube, log in with Google, log in with Facebook. It's out there. You click the button. If you're on your phone, it opens the application. Actually, Facebook supports the most authentications of anyone on the planet. So Facebook, I know, surprised me too. So log in with Facebook. When I log in with Facebook, what I'm actually doing is I'm making a three-way trust between myself, Facebook, and whatever this entity was that asked me to log in. Facebook is going to send them a user profile. You get some control over what that user profile is going to have in it. So exercise those controls. Now, on the customer side, that's not very good for them because they don't get to know who you really are, right? And you can restrict that data. So what they then have to do is resort to progressive profiling, adding some sort of valid identity after the fact, after they create a cryptographic identity of your social identity. So that's the concept where you might use your driver's license to associate your face with a particular Facebook account, but you won't do that with your anonymous account. You keep that one without a driver's license. And I think, we need to support that for the exact reason of, freedom of speech, freedom of access to platforms. You see, like, I know you all grew up in an era that is entirely different than mine. So quite literally, we got the internet on a disc at my house in the mail, okay? And you couldn't make a phone call while anybody was on the internet. And if you did, all hell broke loose and nothing worked. The phone stopped working, everything stopped working. Cut to you guys, I don't know if you had a pre-cell phone era at your age. I'm not certain. I don't think you did, right? So it's just, it's part of your life. It's not part of mine. It's a matter of fact, when I go to someplace in person and they say, oh, go online and do this, it's an affront to my sensibilities. Why would you tell me to go online when I'm standing right here? But your generation is different. You're already online. They didn't have to tell you. You're holding up your phone with the QR code, and they're ready to serve you because you guys adopted the technology and gave them that information. And my son, he's 20 now. He does it as without even thinking. He's got 100 different apps, signs up, deletes the app from his phone, and thinks that means that they forgot him, right? Well, guess what? When you delete that app, they don't forget you, right? So you got to go and make yourself forgotten. So, yeah, when you have that login with these identities, those identities become so disposable, they're worthless to the businesses, but businesses still want to let you use them because it's super low friction, right? And remember this too, business as a principle, quick economics class. If I had my druthers, I would rather meet you anonymous on the street, you give me 20 bucks, me give you the thing, we walk away, we never see each other again. I would rather not learn your name. That's too expensive, takes too much time. The digital era and the need to be able to recur business is what caused companies to start having to collect information. And even when they started to collect information, they did not validate that information. I had electric accounts with I don't know how many different providers that not one time did they ever validate my information. They just expected the check, and if the check didn't come, well, then they might see who I am, right? That's not the way it was operated. So when digital identity overlaid over top of this, it was a real inconvenience, and it was an immediate cost center to all these companies, and they basically took the cheapest way out, every single one of them. And a lot of the cheapest way out was, oh, well, we have developers, let's build it ourselves. And so that's how we got to the state where we're at, where digital identity was an afterthought. And that's really where my generation is like, if I walked into a business, they were happy I was there. They would never ask me to go to an online experience because I'm there. That was gold, right? Having the customer in proximity. Well, now that's not gold anymore. Your generation and the younger ones coming up behind you, they expect the more passive experience where I don't actually have to interact with somebody. I can do it here, and the person over there gets a notification, and they know what to do, and everybody just kind of falls into place like robots because the technology did it all for us. That's not natural to my generation, so it's a lot different, and we treat our privacy a lot differently. So I want you guys to take that point of view and kind of push it to the next generation because believe me, I know you're accustomed to it. The data that you got spread all over the globe, we got to start reeling it in. So hopefully that answered your question. I know I rambled a little on that one. Any others? What have you been Googling? Anything good over there?
I don't know.
No? Okay. All right. Well, we can wrap it up. Did we do an hour?
Yeah, we're great.
Okay. All right. All right, last chance. Any questions? Oh, you got one.
What was RIT a decade ago?
A little smaller. This building wasn't here. RIT a decade ago was interesting because we were in the hotbed. So all the security OGs were here and RPI. That was the rivalry. That's where everybody was. And if you held a cyber event here or at RPI, you could attract any audience you want. And we had people, showing up that were great. We had Steve Wozniak show up to one of our ISTS. We had great audiences, and it was the beginning of the gamification, right? The cyber competitions. That was really just starting, and we were starting to see like the response we got from colleges and from people that were hosting those. So that was the beginning of that. I think they started a win streak right around that time where RIT was winning them, back to back. The professors were less focused on research, more focused on practical teaching. We were trying to entice all the three-letter agencies to come in and give us money at the time, so they were always trying to get you into these I don't know how are they still pushing security clearances for you all? No? Oh, okay. All right, start rattling some cages. When I was here, the professors were like, do you want a clearance? And I'd say, yes. Okay, we're going to find you one. And this next 4 years is going to be about us figuring out where that clearance is going to come from. And they got my sponsor day one after graduation, and 6 months later, I had my clearance. So if it's a path that you want, Do not let it go unknown that you want to get your clearance, because we need people that are smart like you all, that have the security mindset in those cleared fields, because it's not happening at the rate it needs to happen. So yeah, they pushed clearances quite a bit more. Trying to think of what else. Still a lot of snow, colder than hell. Yeah. Yeah, but fun time generally. I liked it. I come back. So, how's it going for you all? Good, good. You happy with your decision so far? Yeah, right. This is the only investment that I've ever made in my life that I have not bitched about to my wife. Now, I have complained about every single one of them. I buy a golf club and 3 weeks later I hate it. I'm so angry about it. This is one of those investments that's never happened. I'm very happy that I made it. I'm happy that I paid attention. You're getting gold here. So one of the things that when I came here, Bill Stackpole, he just retired. Do you all know Bill? Or is he retired yet? Yeah. I knew it was close. Anyway, so he's like, listen, we're going to make you immediately billable. But don't come here if you're going to just screw around, because when we go and hire you out and say, okay, this guy's immediately billable, you're just going to embarrass us. And nobody wants to be embarrassed. And so I'd never had anybody speak to me like that. And so I was like, okay, fair enough. So I took that as a very serious, like, I need to get out of here immediately billable. And then Michelle McGee added some overlay for me. And she said, listen, the reason for that is you're not just representing you when you leave this institution. You're representing everybody who left before you and everybody who will leave after you. If you leave here not immediately billable and somebody sees that as the product of RIT, the next time they come to RIT, they're going to go, well, the luster's diminished a little bit, right? Because that last guy wasn't, or last girl wasn't really immediately billable. So take it very seriously. And when you go negotiate with those employers, let them know, hey, I'm immediately billable. Pay me what I'm worth. Because the next RIT grad that comes to have that conversation shouldn't have to argue as hard as you did. Doesn't mean you shouldn't argue. Argue hard. Argue hard for what you're worth. Make sure the next person behind you doesn't have to argue as hard. That's your job. All right, QED, I think I'm done. No, I'll take more. If you got more questions, I'll take them. I was just kind of. All right. Thanks all for the opportunity. I really appreciate chatting with you all.